My name is Dr. Celeste Hawthorne, and I'm 36 years old. Young enough to still be dismissed, but old enough to know better. I was born into a family that built its legacy on pharmaceuticals and prestige. A dynasty that believes image is everything and silence is survival. While my siblings stayed on brand, private schools, PR marriages, board seats, I traded cocktail dresses for code, data, and clinical truth. I've always been the outlier, the one they call difficult, when what they really mean is dangerous. I stopped attending reunions years ago, but this time I came back because someone had to look them in the eye, and because I wasn't sure I'd survive long enough to come again. What none of them knew was this. The moment my husband walked through that door, 5 words would destroy everything they'd built. The chandeliers flickered like nerves misfiring. Heat swam in the air above trays of foie gras and falsity. People laughed too loud, held eye contact too long. The ballroom at Hawthorne Estate always smelled like old money and cloying denial. "Celeste, you made it," my mother said, like I'd RSVP'd to hell. "Ivy." I nodded, dry. Her pearls caught the light. Her judgment did not. "Still consulting with hospitals?" she asked, teeth white, voice sharper. "Or was it research for hire now?" "I'm working in independent review," I said. I didn't offer more. Truth doesn't survive in rooms like this. Beaumont passed behind me. Must be nice to take sabbaticals indefinitely. Freedom's expensive, but I pay the price. My voice stayed flat. To their right, my father lifted his champagne glass. A toast to all my children, but especially those who've made the family proud. Cameras clicked. I didn't move. Delilah leaned closer. Her perfume was always violent. "At least this time, you showed up single and unemployed. Progress." The laughter cut sharper than her heels. I smiled. Quiet. Calculated. "You ever wonder why the black sheep always knows where the firewood's kept?" I asked her. She blinked. Cameras clicked again. I slipped away from the crowd. Heels echoing down the marble corridor. My clutch buzzed twice. I stepped into the library, dark, cold, quiet. The only room that ever held secrets better than people. I opened the message. Unknown sender. Encrypted. Subject. Urgent. Internal docs Hawthorne trial 72B. You were right. Rosalind didn't jump. Check the file. Drop expires midnight. The file unpacked slowly. I watched it unravel like a noose. Clinical trials. Dosage manipulation. Patient fatalities labeled statistical variance. 22 deaths buried beneath redactions. Rosalind. My mentor. My warning shot. She tried to blow the whistle 2 years ago. Found dead 3 weeks later in her bathtub. They ruled it stroke. And now I was holding the bullet she died for. Someone moved outside the window. I froze. A shape. A flicker. Gone. The phone buzzed again. You shouldn't have come back. My breath locked. A shadow passed the doorway. I stepped back, holding the phone like a blade. My heart pounded louder than the jazz back in the ballroom. The door opened only an inch. I braced. It was Ivy. "Everything all right, darling?" Her voice syruped through the gap. Sweet. Toxic. I tucked the phone away. Just needed air. She looked at me too long. "Don't disappear. Your father wants a family photo." I waited till her heels clicked out of range. Then I turned back to the screen. The file had started erasing itself. Auto-purge. I yanked out the flash drive. My watch buzzed. GPS interference detected. I wasn't being watched. I was being triangulated. "You're not just the family embarrassment anymore, Celia. Now you're a threat." The file burned itself into my retinas before the screen went black. I dropped the drive into the inner lining of my clutch, slipped back into the ballroom like nothing happened. But everything had changed. People swirled like a drunken carousel. Flashbulbs, champagne flutes, hollow smiles. My father held court near the stage, hand on Beaumont's shoulder. Delilah fake laughed beside the governor's wife. I scanned for one face. He wasn't here yet, and I needed him here. The first tremor hit when I locked eyes with Nolan Callister, AMC's in-house counsel, corporate Grim Reaper. He didn't blink, just raised his glass to me like a warning shot. I moved toward the edge of the room, weaving past glimmering gowns and conversations dressed in deceit. A violinist tuned mid-note. Someone whispered, "She's still with that military guy, right?" "Ex-military," I corrected without turning. "Celia Hawthorne, always the ghost in her own house. Do you believe in ghosts?" Rosalind once asked me, years before her name was redacted from everything she touched. Because families like yours don't bury their dead. They recycle them into stories. There was a sound, a door opening near the east wing. Not just sound. Shift. The room exhaled. Heads turned. Laughter paused. Atlas walked in. Dark suit, top button loose. I barely nodded. Eyes locked on mine. 5 steps in. Ivy's voice cut through the silence. "You're late, Atlas." He didn't look at her. He looked at my father, and then he said it. 5 words. "We need to talk. Now." The air broke. My father stepped forward, stunned. "Excuse me." Atlas's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Some things don't wait for dessert. Ivy's face drained. Beaumont froze mid-sip. Delilah hissed, "What the hell is he doing?" I already knew. We agreed no moves until midnight. But something had gone wrong. Something had pushed the timeline. Atlas approached the mic at the stage. 2 AMC security guards moved to intercept. He lifted a file, physical, and dropped it on the podium. "Copies of this are already with DOJ, 2 national newsrooms, and a whistleblower protection firm. So let's skip the small talk." Silence. He flipped the first page. "You knew about Trial 72B. You signed off on accelerated protocols. You rerouted oversight through a private shell in Barbados. Hawthorne doesn't even own it on paper." The room erupted. "No one leaves," Atlas said calmly, nodding toward the perimeter. "If anyone tries, it gets worse." Nolan lunged. Atlas moved faster. Military reflex. Wrist lock. Twist. Nolan hit the floor, gasping. Security stepped back. Beaumont surged forward, fury incarnate. "You arrogant bastard." Atlas cut him off. "You buried 22 people. You can bury your pride next." Gasps. A tray shattered. "My father barked. He's bluffing." But Ivy was already backing away from the light. She knew. Because the papers in Atlas's hand weren't just copies. They were originals, signed, time-stamped, and sealed in the company archive by someone on the inside. Someone who wasn't me. The crowd turned on itself. People whispering names, dates, lawsuits. A local journalist began filming. Delilah's phone was already buzzing. Atlas turned toward me, voice just low enough. "They moved early. They know." I whispered back, "The leak, how bad?" He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled a burner phone from his coat, tapped twice. A screen at the side of the ballroom blinked to life. Slide 1. Hawthorne Clinical Trial 72B. Slide 2. Deaths by batch ID. Slide 3. Internal memo. Margin for error acceptable. Media exposure minimal. Delilah screamed. Beaumont grabbed the mic, yelling about slander, litigation, federal immunity. No one listened. The chandelier above flickered again. And then, blackout. Someone cut the power. I reached for Atlas's hand. "Move. Now." We ran through the side corridor, past the wine cellar, through the staff hallway I'd memorized at 13, the year I started needing exits more than entrances. Outside, wind howled across the vineyard. A figure stood by the garage. Marisol. She wasn't supposed to be here. She held out keys. Ford Mustang. Go now. I'll stall them. Atlas blinked. You said 24 hours. She cut him off. They didn't wait. Atlas turned to me. Do you trust her? I nodded once. She got me the file. Another voice echoed from behind. Beaumont. Celia. You leave now, you're finished. I looked back one last time. No, I'm just getting started. The Mustang roared out of the vineyard's back gate, gravel spitting like buckshot under the tires. Atlas gripped the wheel like he was still at war. I didn't ask where we were going. I only checked the rear view mirror twice per second. No one followed us. Yet, we hit the highway. Midnight air. Road cut like a blade through farmland. Atlas broke the silence. The kill switch was tripped at 10:03. Power, comms, access logs, all scrubbed. So we're exposed, I said flatly. Not yet. But Marisol's buy-in cost more than favors. Someone paid her to flip. We just beat them to it. I stared out the window. Moonlight fractured on the side view mirror. You never win a war by playing clean. You win by knowing which rule to break and when to disappear. Atlas tossed me a phone. Call your old contact at the OIG. Evans. I blinked. He retired. Not from keeping receipts. I dialed. Voicemail. Atlas swore under his breath. Then we go analog. Cut scene. 2:14 a.m. A storage unit in Petaluma. Cold metal. Fluorescent lights flickering like dying stars. I punched in the code. 7924. The birth date of someone who didn't make it out of trial 72B. Door lifted. The air smelled like plastic and dust. Inside, file crates, one laptop wrapped in copper mesh, a safe, and a wall covered in evidence tags. Atlas scanned the files. You kept everything. AMC taught me one thing. Never delete anything you might need in court. I opened the safe, pulled a folder marked E. Nolan Callister / financial / BVI wire transfers. Here, I said, the Shell Corporation isn't in Ivy's name. It's in Nolan's wife's. They thought hiding it one layer deeper would work. Atlas flipped through, then stopped. Jesus, this is bigger. What? He turned the page. There are payments, monthly, coded under research consulting. Look. He held up the paper. I froze. The recipient. My name. What the hell is this? They've been laundering money through your ID. If this gets out, it looks like you were on payroll. No, I never. Atlas grabbed my shoulders. Celia, this is the twist. This is the play. They didn't just set you up as the whistleblower. You're the fall guy. I backed away. Heart slammed. You think that's why they invited me to this reunion? Not invited, Atlas said grimly. Summoned. Another cut. 3:02 a.m. Hotel parking garage. Downtown San Rafael. Why here? I asked. He nodded toward a black sedan parked alone. Evan stepped out. He looked older, meaner, a fresh scar across his cheek. I figured you'd be back someday, he said. We exchanged no pleasantries. I need you to validate a set of documents, I said. Chain of custody. Digital signature mapping. I need you to prove I didn't authorize those wires. Evans lit a cigarette. AMC's already spinning. Press release dropped an hour ago, blaming a rogue data analyst with unfettered system access. Guess who that is? I didn't blink. I've been rogue my whole life, I said, but never that sloppy. He laughed, humorless. I'll need 24 hours. You have 12. A screech. Tires. We turned. A drone hovered. High, silent, almost invisible. Then it dropped something. Paper. Dozens of pages. They rained like ash. I grabbed one. Hawthorne family conspired to bury experimental deaths. Evidence ties daughter to embezzlement. My photo, my credentials, my badge ID. Fake, but convincing. Evan snarled, "This is public now." Atlas pulled me into the car. "They're forcing your hand." What do? We get ahead of it. Another cut. 3:45 a.m. University Hospital. Research wing. We slipped in through maintenance. I led the way. Lab 6C. Retina scan still worked. Barely. Inside, cold hum of machines. This was where Trial 72B began, where it was supposed to end. We pulled the original samples, batch records, admin logs, and then Atlas found it. "Who's Elise Kavanaugh?" I turned white. "She was never part of the trial," I said. "She's my mother's sister. Died when I was a baby." "No, she didn't. She signed this." He held up a consent form, dated 3 months ago. "Impossible. She's dead." Someone faked a dead woman's signature. Or someone isn't dead. I shook my head. This doesn't make sense. Footsteps. Door creaked. We froze. A silhouette in the glass. Someone watching. Not moving. Just there. Atlas mouthed, "Run." But before we moved, the lights flickered again, and the sprinkler system triggered. Water cascaded. Shorted the power. Red emergency lights flared. A voice echoed through the speaker system. "Celia Hawthorne, please stay where you are." I didn't. I grabbed the sample folder and bolted down the hallway. My mother always said, "The past doesn't die. It waits." Well, tonight it came back screaming. Rain hammered the rooftop of the estate like it was trying to break in. Thunder crawled over the hills. The lights across the vineyard flickered again. Too many times to be weather. Too precise. Too intentional. "What did you do, Atlas?" I whispered, gripping the soaked folder to my chest as we sprinted along the stone path behind the estate. He didn't slow. I pulled the trigger first. On what? Everything. We cut through the hedges, sharp leaves slicing my arms, until we reached the back lawn, where the storm blurred the world into streaks of light and dark. Party tents collapsed under the wind. Guests scattered like ants. Then I saw it. A small stage, microphones still hot, and on every surrounding screen, running on backup power, a single message blinked. File, transfer complete, mirrored to 17 servers. My breath caught. "You uploaded it?" I choked. Atlas nodded once. Rain streaked down his jawline like tears he'd never admit. Ivy materialized from the chaos, umbrella inverted by the wind. Her voice cut like glass. "You arrogant child. Do you think you understand the cost of what you've done?" Atlas stepped toward her. "Cost? Lady, you don't even know the price yet." Behind her, Everett moved in, jaw clenched, eyes bloodshot. But this wasn't anger. This was fear. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "You've just declared war on a corporation with more attorneys than this state has police officers." Atlas laughed under his breath. "And none of them can stop a clock that's already hit 0. A security guard lunged at him. Atlas twisted, deflected, and slammed the man into the mud with military precision. The crowd screamed. Marisol appeared beside me, drenched, badge flashing from under her jacket. Except it wasn't the private investigator license I'd seen before. It was DOJ. "You set me up," I said, stunned. "No," she answered. "I kept you alive." Her voice stayed low level. "Your family wasn't just hiding trial deaths. They were selling genomic data overseas, encrypted, untraceable, and illegal. I've been tracking the pipeline for 18 months. Lightning cracked. My world did too. So this was never about 72B, I whispered. 72B was just the doorway, she said. Your mother built the hallway leading to it. Atlas turned to me, breathing hard. We needed to force the disclosure. Once the data hit the watchdog networks, The DOJ had jurisdiction to intervene. You could have told me. You'd have tried to protect them, he said. You always do. The truth stung more than the rain. A shout erupted behind us. Everett stormed toward the microphones, grabbing one like he still controlled the room. This disruption ends now. This is defamation, criminal defamation, and every party involved will face litigation. Marisol stepped forward. This isn't a court of public opinion, Mr. Hawthorne. This is federal. A bolt of lightning lit the sky. For a moment it felt cinematic. Everyone frozen, drenched, backs bent under the weight of a truth too heavy to hold. Then, a blast of wind tore down a tent pole. Screams. Atlas grabbed my hand. We go. Now. We sprinted toward the garage. Mud splashed. Voices chased us, shouted orders. Threats. My name spit from lips that once fed me lies. Inside the garage, classic cars gleamed under emergency lights. The storm made the power flicker red, like we were hiding inside a pulsing artery. Atlas threw a set of keys at me. Mustang, 1967, midnight blue. I caught them by reflex. That thing even run in a storm. I asked. He smirked. It runs when I hotwire it. In seconds, he popped the panel and crossed 2 wires. Engine roared awake, a beast shaking off chains. He jumped in the passenger seat. I slid behind the wheel, hands trembling but ready. Where are we heading? You're not going to like it, he said. But Evans was right. The only safe place tonight is the DOJ safe house. Before I could answer, a figure emerged from the shadows. Wet hair plastered to her face, mascara streaked down her cheeks. It was Delilah. She approached the car, door slowly, like we were animals that might bolt. Celia, don't go, she pleaded. They're saying things. They're saying you forged signatures, that you laundered money, that you... That's the story they need, I said. Doesn't make it true. Delilah grabbed the door handle. Rain washed over her hand. If you leave, they'll make you disappear. Something in her voice wasn't a warning. It was a memory. My stomach turned. What do you know? I demanded. She hesitated. Then, I saw Annalise. Last month. She's alive. My blood ran cold. No, I whispered. She died before I was born. Delilah shook her head violently. I know what I saw. She was meeting with Nolan, alone, and she looked terrified. Cut scene. A flash of headlights blazed behind us. Security vehicles. Atlas yelled, Celia, drive! I stomped the gas. Tires screamed. The Mustang fishtailed, corrected, shot forward into the storm. Lightning tore across the sky again, white and violent. Atlas braced himself against the dash. You realize what this means, right? Tell me. Aunt Elise didn't sign that trial form. Then who did? He looked at the road ahead, jaw clenched. The person who forged her signature didn't just fake a document. They faked a resurrection. And in that moment, with the road vanishing under sheets of rain, I realized we weren't running for my family anymore. We were running toward a secret big enough to collapse their entire empire, and maybe burn me with it. The van pulled up in front of the Senate office at first light. Street lamps still flickered off. Fog clung to the pavement like a premonition. Atlas and I stepped out, wrists tight, eyes scanning. No smiles today. No pleasantries. Just the press, a wall of cameras, microphones, questions fired like bullets. I had rehearsed this moment until it tasted stale, but nothing prepared me for the glare. I adjusted my suit. My ribs still throbbed from the hospital fight. Every breath was a bruise. Remember, Atlas murmured, they want a soundbite. Don't give them more. I nodded once. We walked in. Inside, the corridors were antiseptic white. Too bright. Too many eyes. A quote flicked through my mind, something I once said in a terminal waiting room. Truth is a weapon that cuts both ways. Today it cut mine. We reached the hearing room. Massive oak doors, etched with the seal of the United States Senate Committee on Health. The guards scanned our IDs. I saw fear in their hesitation, not because I looked dangerous, but because I carried a storm no one wanted to name. Inside, the committee sat like judges in a cathedral, reporters behind them, phones raised like battlements. I took my seat, Atlas beside me, silent strength. Senator Whitlock leaned forward. Dr. Hawthorne, thank you for being here. We understand this is difficult. Difficult wasn't the word. Survival was. I swallowed. Thank you for having me. Lights dimmed. A spotlight on the podium. Someone behind me whispered, remember, confidence. The room smelled like coffee and anticipation. Then the first slide dropped on the screen. Not mine. Not Atlas's. Someone else's. Batch mortality charts. Patient complaints redacted and buried. Email threads between corporate execs with language like minimize exposure, creative accounting, and the worst, acceptable losses. My stomach looped. I hadn't released these. At least, not publicly. But someone did. Senator Whitlock didn't blink. We've been provided with a complete set of documents implicating Hawthorne and Sons. Dr. Hawthorne, is this accurate? My breath hitched. Atlas's jaw clenched. Some of that is accurate, I said carefully. But I was not the source of all documents released. I have evidence that certain files were staged. A murmur rippled across the room. Atlas leaned in, hand on mine, his voice low. They want you to look unstable. They'll use anything. I remembered another line I once lived by. When truth is buried, it claws its way out. And chose to believe it. Senator Whitlock lifted an eyebrow. Staged files? I nodded. Yes, we have verified originals that contradict parts of that release. I intend to submit them before the end of this session. A commotion. Cameras swung toward a man rising in the back, a corporate whistleblower from Hawthorne. Face pale, eyes jittery. I worked on the database, he said. They told me to backdate corrections. They said it would. The gavel slammed. No, the truth slammed. Senators leaned forward. Staffers scrambled. Reporters shouted. Atlas rose, pulled a flash drive from his jacket. Backup copies of original trials, signed chain of custody records, timestamp server logs, all authenticated. He handed it to the clerk. A ripple of disbelief. Nolan Callister's face appeared on the screen. Not live, not expected. A pre-recorded deposition. His voice was calm against chaos. If you're hearing this, I am invoking whistleblower protection. I will testify under oath. All company directives to manipulate data were issued by corporate counsel and approved at senior board level. Gasps. Atlas didn't flinch. I didn't. The room was a live wire. Senator Whitlock looked at me. Expression unreadable. Dr. Hawthorne, what you're alleging is massive corporate conspiracy, cover UPS, possible criminal charges. Do you stand by your testimony? I inhaled. Slow, sharp, firm. I do. A flash, and then another. Reporters jostled. Phones flashed like modern strobe lights. Someone in the crowd muttered, "This is bigger than Watergate." I locked eyes with Atlas for a second, then back to the committee. I'll answer your questions. The first one came, slow and deliberate. How long have you known about these discrepancies? I braced, long enough to know that when power fears exposure, it lashes out. Silence. Then another question, and another. The room filled with tension, thick enough to strangle. But I spoke, clear, precise, cutting through the cloak of lies. A younger senator asked, "Are you being targeted right now?" I thought of the drone at the hospital, the planted documents, the shadow that watched us in research wing. Yes, I said, And I believe some of those responsible for this manipulation are present in this chamber or watching live. Shock. Gasps. Shuffling. Atlas's grip on my hand tightened. I remembered a phrase my mentor used. Truth is not fragile. It withstands scrutiny. Today, I needed that truth to stand. The questioning ended. The reporters erupted. The sound was deafening. Senator Whitlock leaned in once more. The committee will adjourn and review all evidence. Measures may include criminal referrals and protective custody for witnesses. Protective custody. I didn't flinch. I didn't want protection. I wanted justice. As we stood to leave, cameras swirled like vultures. I felt them. Every lens. Every eye. Evaluating. Waiting. Then, a shout. From the back. Aren't you the daughter of Hawthorne? The prodigal? Laughter followed. A reporter's voice cut in. Were you involved in the embezzlement charges too? Bullets of words. Atlas stepped in front of me, his voice low but sharp. That allegation is defamatory. You have 20 seconds to retract or face legal consequences. The room went silent. People stared, but no one moved. No one retracted. The tension hung like a blade. And then, another flash went off. Not from cameras. From outside. A building across the street. Explosion. The Senate windows shuddered. Glass cracked. People screamed. Chaos erupted. Atlas pulled me down. Move, he said. But before we could, a voice boomed over the PA system. Lockdown. Active threat. Stay where you are. My heart dropped, and I realized this wasn't random. Not an accident. Someone wanted this ending. Someone wanted us silenced. And as sirens wailed closer, I whispered to Atlas, they're not just after our story, they're after us. The sirens didn't wail. They screamed. Glass shattered like splinters. Dust fell in slow arcs. Senators ducked. Reporters hit the floor. Atlas shoved me down, body first, instinct over thought. We were pinned beneath overturned chairs, echoes bouncing like gunshots in a tunnel. Stay low, Atlas hissed. Heartbeat ragged. The explosion wasn't random. It was a message. Our message. Above the cacophony, the PA crackled. Remain in place. This building is under lockdown. No evacuation. No merci. Just fear in every direction. Atlas checked his phone. No signal. Behind us, voices. Heavy boots. Orders barked in clipped commands. We weren't alone. Someone wanted this to end tonight. I touched my side, ribs still tender, a reminder that momentum didn't pause for pain. Survival isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward while it screams in your ear. I slid out from under the chair. Atlas followed. We edged toward a side, door-marked exit, flanked by shattered glass and sparks drifting like embers of chaos. A guard blocked the threshold, blood at his temple. Dead. His rifle clattered down the hallway. We didn't stop. Cut. The hallway was a tunnel of alarms and red strobes. Fire suppression hissed overhead. Somewhere distant, a voice. Shelter in place. Do not approach exits. The twist wasn't just bombs. It was containment. They trapped us like lab rats. I glanced at Atlas, his jaw set, eyes burning with a war no one asked for, but we were now in. We turned the corner. Another guard, alive, raised his weapon. Before he fired, another figure stepped out. Detective Marisol Vance. Gun raised. Back off, she growled. Atlas froze. I didn't. Go, I told him. But she didn't move. Instead, she lowered her weapon and pointed down the hall. We don't have time. They're sealing every exit. Atlas hesitated. I didn't. I sprinted. She followed. We reached the committee chambers, rubble, chaos, but the evidence projector still blinking. Then another sound. A voice familiar. It filtered through static, then clear, through the emergency PA system. not the lockdown recording. A real voice. My father's. Celia. Heart dropped. The chamber went quiet. Atlas whispered, "Sound only comes from one source." They had access. They knew our names. My father continued, voice brittle with something I hadn't heard in years, dread. "Celia, please. Listen. It's going to escalate. Stand down." I stared at the speakers. Hawthorne blood. Why are you still defending them? I spat. No reply. I turned toward Atlas. Teeth clenched, mind churning. We needed evidence, not peace. A sudden knock on the far door. 2 figures entered, senators flanked by Capitol Police. But one was Nolan Callister, bleeding, disheveled, eyes wide with truth and terror. "What I'm about to say," Nolan gasped, "will undo the whole playbook." Confusion flickered across the lawmen's faces. Nolan straightened, trembling. "They activated this lockdown on my signature," he said, voice cracking. "Under duress." Gasps. Murmurs. Atlas stepped forward. "You had nothing to do with the data purge?" Nolan shook his head, breath shaking. "They forced my hand, threatened my family. Hawthorne kept score in lives, not ledgers." Everything shifted. Another voice, not mine, whispered in my mind. "The liar's greatest fear isn't that truth triumphs. It's that it becomes undeniable." I stepped forward. "Release the lockdown. You have one chance to walk out with integrity." Atlas put a hand on my back. Nolan reached into his jacket. A flash drive. "Everything," he said. "Direct logs. Internal orders. Names. Minutes of meetings. Signed." The guard lowered his weapon. Emergency lights flickered. The cameras upstairs were still live. This wasn't containment anymore. It was a confession stage. I grabbed the drive, Atlas, and I backed toward the opening as the lockdown disengaged. Lights switched from red to white. Doors unsealed with electronic clicks. People stared. Confusion, relief, shock. A cacophony of human emotion as the building breathed again. A janitor peered out through dust-streaked windows. A reporter cried, "Is this the biggest corporate collapse in American history?" The world seemed to hold its breath. Outside, sirens faded. No more explosions. Just truth. Atlas and I walked out together. Sunlight cut through smoke and dust like hope slashing night. Reporters surged. Cameras pointed like bayonets. I watched them, calm in the storm. "Tension," I whispered, "isn't the enemy." Atlas looked at me. "No," he said, "it's the beginning." I stepped onto the steps where they once mocked me, where my family celebrated legacy over humanity. The press circled. Not insults, not sneers, questions full of respect. I lifted the flash drive. "This," I said, voice steady, "is accountability." Flashes burst. "Is this the end?" "No," I said. "It's the beginning." Because justice isn't a destination. It's a witness. And we were watching now. A former dynasty unravel in real time. I remembered another saying, one I barely breathed until now. You don't find justice. You make it. Atlas squeezed my hand. I lifted my gaze toward the sunrise. Not behind me. Not ahead. But rising with us. And as the cameras focused in, I spoke into the microphones. Not as a victim, not as an outcast, but as the truth walking into light. "My name is Celeste Hawthorne," I said, "and this is the legacy we choose now." The world listened.